Coming up,
Talking to CMOs about how to pick an agency.
The truth of the matter seems to be it's more price-driven.
If they're going to keep the tagline and all of that, why are they leaving the agency and why are they unhappy?
It's just a distraction, or it's just
Right,
a way of...
or it's a way of moving things around on the Titanic.
If I was a CMO...
You're listening to The Pod Couple, where John Amisotti and Barbara Lippert debate all things media culture.
Hey everyone, we're back with the Pod Couple. The topic today is talking to CMOs about how to pick an agency. Seems like there's a lot of movement around this, a lot of movement around CMOs, and a lot of changes once they come in. What's your view on this?
Wow. Well, I think
John? I know it's a big topic.
It's a big topic, and it's probably one that, touches every single agency one way or another. I have thought about it, and I probably do have some points on that.
Okay, let's hear them.
Well, I think the first point is when you're a CMO and you're looking for an agency, the very first thing I would say is be honest what you really want out of this. And as much as that sounds a little bit silly, a lot of times that account will go up for review, and you'll hear that we're creatively not satisfied, or we didn't hear the right service, or we didn't hear, pick a number. It could be anything. Yeah. But then if you actually get into the pitch, you'll find out as you go through the information that it's probably really something different.
Right.
I'd use an example right now in town of there's a large fast food company that's had its big account up for review between a couple agencies. And while they've basically come out and said it's a creatively driven pitch, the truth is they're not really going to walk away from the tagline. The creative has always kind of been in a world of what we'd call old people's home spaghetti.
Right.
Not really spicy, not really anything. It just sort of is. But the truth of the matter seems to be it's more price-driven, and you might be better off just asking what you really want and getting a better answer that way.
Right. Because if they're going to keep the tagline and all of that, why are they leaving the agency and why are they unhappy?
You're right. And it's just a distraction, or it's just a way of
it's a way of moving things around on the Titanic.
Yeah. And,
and
maybe
making the agency culpable for it.
Right. Exactly.
And the other thing that I know about some pitches is that basically the CMO has an agency in mind from the very beginning. And he feels like he or she has to round it out by getting a smaller agency, an agency in another city, an agency, for whatever reason, a tech agency. And they're there just to prove the point of what he wants, really.
A lot of times. And again, I think that dovetails right out of the first point, which is be honest. And if you have a relationship with an agency that you worked at a previous brand,
right,
it's probably okay to just say that, and people
and announce
would get
that you're hiring them without a review.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I would use that to maybe get into the second point that both of these come out of. I talked a little about the example of like a certain client wanted to lower cost. You talk about a client that just wants to work with somebody just because
they think there's magic out there somehow.
And sometimes there is, and that would be my second point. If you can find somebody who can create lightning in a bottle for you, which is what an agency will do when it's the best, if they can do it within your budget, don't worry so much about how much they get paid.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that goes on right now, and they want like detailed pricing structures. They want to know where every dime is going. And my point would be, if you're happy with what they sold you and it met your price,
and it made you money,
and it made you money, don't worry about it. That's their business. And I find that to be a a really silly exercise that we're spending a lot of time on more and more. Pricing.
I know, nickel and diming. And so in that way,
Penny
just
wise,
get,
pound foolish.
just
right?
get like a one-man shop who does everything and he'll give you the cheapest price.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I mean, you could go to Kinko's
Right.
and get a lot
Exactly.
of it done. Third point, and again, it gets into, I would say, like, you go and you have the pitch. Give us all the information you can give us about what's going on. Let us know as much as you feel comfortable about, and even if there are things about your internal politics, any information you have on your sales, give us all the information you can. Give us your goals, but don't give us direction. Don't tell the cook how to make your meal.
Yes.
And that's a really common thing, too, that I think really frustrates a lot of agencies, that it's like, really, we know you want—
Why do you need us if you know exactly what you're going to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like, so then are we just really the facilitators of your thing? And there
Right.
are those kind of clients, and they can hire that kind of agency. Again, I think Kinko's probably does a pretty good job at that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's so hard to know in advance because you think it's chemistry.
Right.
And, it's so hard to know how a team is going to work out.
Right. Which dovetails right into the next point, chemistry. And that's very important. Chemistry checks have been a big part of the business forever. What isn't necessarily done as much is vetting your agency.
Right.
Even in the business, we sometimes make that mistake ourselves. I mean, when we hire, somebody comes in with a reel or their website and their work, and it's just our human nature to assume that it's like, if this person has shown you that work, that they created it.
Yes.
And a lot of us have been burned by that in the past.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of clients have been burned by it, because I've worked in agencies where I've seen the reel of the greatest stuff go up there, or the work, and it's like, not too many of these people work here anymore.
Right,
So—
right. Well, also, are you going to bring in freelancers for the pitch? And are they going to stay if you get the account? Because the work that you won on then is done by freelancers and you can't tell. On the other hand, sometimes, the client is just looking around for free stuff to steal from the agencies,
And that—
while you're working for free on the pitch.
Right.
So
that can be it. That actually leads to another good point, too. The freelancers, with the freelance gig economy,
right.
a lot of times the person doing the work could work in any of the shops if they're of a certain thing. And if I was a CMO, I would actually really look at my business problem, and I would specifically go to different types of shops and say, how would
you mean use like 5 different shops at a time?
And I would use shops that it's like, again, I'll bring up this company that's got 2 large shops in Chicago pitted against each other. They're the same thing. It's the same kind of shop. They're probably using a lot of the same people. Whereas if you went to a shop that, for example, specialized 100% in mobile advertising, or you went to a shop that specialized 100% in data-driven answers, and you went to a generalist, you're going to have 3 very different looks at your brand, and you're going to have 3 very different answers. It's kind of pointless.
But then you have to be able to coordinate that well and have the agencies play nicely with each other. And I used to call this
not
like—
if it's a pitch.
Oh, yeah, but once you get it. I used to call this like, the sister wives stuff, where the client's sleeping around and the sister wives have to get along.
True. But that can even be done, and that maybe even makes that position stronger. And if each one is a little bit different in their different worlds, it's a whole lot better than if they're 2 of the same thing.
Right.
You work 2 general shops on the same thing, it's just always a jump ball. People think they're saving money that way. I don't think so.
And pitting shops against each other is just not a good idea.
Exactly.
You should have a better idea of what you want than have to do that jump ball thing.
I think so. And again, if you're really a smart CMO in this world, These jobs are pretty tentative unto themselves. I mean, they're almost as volatile as the ad business now.
Well, or more. And that's the
Or
problem
more.
because when you're a CMO, you get hired, you want to put your stamp on it. So even if the work was good, you go back to the agency you used to work for and you fire the present agency. And you're not putting, the brand ahead of your own career.
Right. Well, in that case, if you're just looking at the creative is always subjective no matter what. I mean, taste is subjective. More power to you if you happen to have taste that a lot of people think is good. But a CMO, it doesn't always matter if the work is award-winning, tasteful or not. If it is, great. But what always matters is, does your brand grow?
Right.
Do your sales results grow? And if you really focus on that type thing, follow a few of these tips that were secrets that I gave you. Worry about what you should be, but concentrate on what's going to make that brand grow. You're probably going to be pretty happy in the end, and it's probably going to be clearer. You're probably going to be a better client, and great clients tend to get great work. Moving into topic of the week, what's hot?
One thing I want to get back to as a book is something interesting happened with J.K. Rowling, famous for Harry Potter. This is the first time she's co-written a book with two other authors.
Wow.
But it's a new Harry Potter book. It's making huge waves. It's supposed to be great. And it's called Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. So the fact that she can keep this going and extend it at this quality, I think is great. My sombrero is off to her.
Intimidating, too. I mean, to co-write with her.
Great language, great plots, wonderful characters, great for kids.
Yeah, I've heard about that. That actually does sound like an interesting book.
Yeah.
And I'll actually stay on the topic, too, of books this week. We'll talk about literature.
Yes.
And this isn't really that, but Philip Kerr is an author who writes a pretty fascinating series of detective novels.
He has a great detective novel kind of name, Philip
Yeah,
Kerr.
he does.
Yeah.
It's probably fake, but he's got a character called Bernie Gunther. And the twist on this is Bernie is a cop in pre-war, during war, and post-war Berlin. So he's not a Nazi, but each one of these has bits of that in it, including what happens after the Nazis are gone. But a really great way to twist the detective novel. Add some historic
that's a
intrigue.
Fascinating period.
Yeah, and a great writer.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good.
let's get a little bookish this week with everybody, right?
Yeah. Start turning those pages.
There we go. All right. Well, anyway, thank you again for coming all the way to Chicago
Oh, totally my pleasure.
to talk, and see you next week.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
For more Pod Couple, you can subscribe on iTunes. You can find us on YouTube. We're on Twitter at Pod Couple and on Facebook. And we have a website, thepodcouple.com.
The Pod Couple is media experts John Amisodi and Barbara Lippert, produced by Eon Content Labs and brought to you by Epsilon. We see what others don't. All comments, discussions, materials, and information provided by participants in the Pod Couple are strictly their own opinion and do not constitute any official position or views of Epsilon. Please refer to our terms of use for more information.